One company that I've noticed, and it's only because I've travelled a little bit in the last wee while, that is consistently the cheapest in New Zealand, is the company I'm going to talk to now. They are Waitomo Petrol. And joining us to talk about the price of petrol, whether or not there is a monopoly cartel, why they're cheap, why they're, for example, Waitomo are cheap and NPD aren't, yet it seems they're offering the same sort of houses in the same sort of areas, is Simon Parham, who is the, as I understand, the chief executive of Waitomo Petrol, and he joins us now. Simon, welcome to the show. Great to have you on this Monday.
Kia ora, great to be here. Thank you very much.
Please tell me, you are the cheapest. I mean, that's my experience in New Zealand. But I only came across you, gosh, it must have been a year ago in Dunedin. You've got Bowser's down there. And I thought, wow, you're 20 cents cheaper than anywhere else. Similar type Bowser's operations. What is Waitomo and where did you get the name? What's the relevance of the name?
Waitomo, well, we're actually just turned 76 years old. So we've been operating for some time. So the legacy was B2B commercial fuel deliveries and transportation. And it started down in Tikawiti by the Ormsby family, who still own Waitomo. And so it started in the King Country in Waitomo. And now we're going strong. We've got sort of 60-odd sites across New Zealand from Dunedin up to Pai here, and we just want to bring sustainable competition to the market.
Well, yeah, certainly you got my support and everybody else's support for that. Sorry, so the Ormsby family still own Waitomo. They're a family-owned private company, are they?
Yes, they are. So it's a New Zealand Kiwi company, so everything that is any profit is reinvested back into New Zealand. So, yeah. Okay. It's the Ormsby family here, so yeah, going strong, and yeah, that keeps us aligned and keeps us in tune with our Kiwi customers, because ultimately we want to be the first choice for fuel, and so we got to continue to listen to people, and that's good feedback or bad feedback. We take it on board.
So when did you get into retailing petrol and the way you are at the moment? What year did that happen? I see you've been ahead 76 years, but I've only seen you just recently.
So it was probably August 2012.
Right.
And that was when in Tiuku, just on the way to Raglan from Hamilton. That was the first unmanned site there. But since then it's grown. In the last 5 years, I think we've built 35 sites and entered the South Island, entered Wellington. And each of those markets, when we've entered there, we've brought that competition or sustainable competition where, especially in Wellington, we saw prices drop 20 or 30 cents a litre when we entered that market, which is a real difference for our customers. And we heard that on the forecourt. We heard it, again and again from people saying, this means I can save a little bit more. This means I can get those groceries. This means I can think about going to see my family or take a holiday.
Okay, so, and this is the other thing that many of us, particularly living in rural and provincial, want to know. So you've got these areas in provincial sites as well, right? So you've talked about Wellington, correct, but you've got them, and so you could just give us some of the provincial centres where you are?
Like from, across Waikato and Morrinsville, Patauru, right. We're into Masterton, and no offence if I'm calling any of these cities more provincial, but Bulls, Foxton, these are all sort of locations where we are, especially in the North Island. Yeah. South Island, we're based Christchurch, Timaru, Dunedin.
Yeah, Christchurch, all right. Well, can I just suggest that there's a place for you in Central Otago Lakes, please. Okay.
Yeah, we're always looking. We're always looking.
Believe
always
me,
trying.
give you my front lawn. The other thing is on that, why are you cheaper? Because the thing that strikes me, wherever I've been, I've kept an eye on this in the I've wanted this interview for a while. I've kept an eye on it this year, and I've noticed that you are consistently the cheapest around. How can you deliver those prices, still make a profit, expand your network as you are, and yet I'm watching the NPDs, the BPs, some of these self-service operations charge, if anything, 20-25 cents a litre more than you are. Are they making a gross profit, or are you just smarter?
Look, I like to think we're smarter. Like, we call ourselves a low-cost operator, and that's low cost, but not low quality. So everything we do, we build to a gold standard because we've got to make sure that we are a good corporate citizen in our community. But you would have seen from some of our sites that not all of them have a canopy, and obviously there's no convenience stores on the sites. That means we can keep our costs low. So it's really about just picking the product up from the terminal, delivering it to the site, and selling it for the best price we can. And we've got no illusion around. Just we want to try to keep pricing sustainable. So there's no predatory pricing at one end of the market, but there's also just no inflationary sort of mega pricing at the other end. So we just want to keep things real.
So when you talk about predatory pricing, does that mean that say, let's just try NPD, who I regard as robbers now, that they will look at a place like Cromwell and say, okay, how much can we get these suckers for? Everybody else is paying X. We'll just simply be 3 or 4 cents lower than them. Is that the kind of predatory pricing you're talking?
No, I sort of think where it's you see some of the main market, main centres where it's just the price. I know it's going to sound tough to your consumers, but it's too cheap, and it's like where the margins are so thin that you can't actually sustain a business on that. So if that happens, then obviously you wouldn't enter a market. So competition may be there in the short term, but a more sustainable market ensures that there's competition in the long term. And I guess that's what we...
Air New Zealand would be predatory pricing, wouldn't they? So though when they had competition, they always dropped their fares to below cost to force out the other guy from the market. And they've done that consistently.
Yeah.
They're just robbers like that. But have you struck that kind of behaviour from existing petrol companies in this country too?
Look, it goes through cycles. And whenever you enter a new market, obviously you want to create a bit of noise. So you might sort of raise your awareness with some cheap fuel. But that we normally class it as an opening special. But what we try to look for is just to say, look, what is the spread between some of our pricing, between our cheapest and our most expensive is, we try to keep it as that band as thin as possible. But, you can observe through the pricing apps such as Gatsby or Gasbuy, some say, some brands are 30 cents differential.
Why is there such significant variance throughout the country? Is all that to do with competition?
Yeah, I to say like my general thoughts because there's not a Waitomo there, and I'll use a great example of I think your old stomping ground is Whanganui, right?
Yeah,
we've got a site in Bulls. Incremental costs to deliver that litre of product to Whanganui is probably what 1 cent, 2 cents more from Bulls down the road, but the pricing compared is 15 to 20 cents higher. So there's not a Waitomo there. If we were there, guess what? The pricing would be a lot cheaper.
Who's making the money?
I think all those participants in the market. There's not one specific. It's it's the pricing to the market that they're operating in. But that's good news for people like us because that's when the market conditions and the market dynamics sort itself out, right? That's where we look for locations like that to say, hey, look, we can get in there and we know that we can get some brand awareness. We know that we can reduce the price and we can get a fair deal and a sustainable deal for the customers in the long term.
You would have heard in my introductory remarks talking about how the price of petrol is now starting to impact upon families. It's a significant cost, and particularly in those rural and provincial areas again, or in areas where public transport doesn't run in the bigger cities as well, effectively or efficiently. Are you experiencing that yourself? Are you aware of that? Or are you finding that because you're priced lower, your volumes are staying up?
Yeah, look, there is a bit of that, like people trading down, and I like to call it trading up. They're coming to our brand instead of potentially being tempted by chocolate bars and coffees at some of the major brands.
Yeah.
So we see that in these tougher times, absolutely, demand is decreasing. but we're managing just to hold our own by being true to our pricing philosophy, which is that sustainability once again. So we're doing okay, but we just recognise that it's tough times for everyone, and we look at that and say, well, how do we ultimately deliver that fuel of that litre of fuel a bit cheaper? What can we do to tighten our belts as well?
Now, you said you've started retailing petrol since August 2012. So that's 11 years now. You'll be having your 11th birthday. Pardon me. You import fuel, right? So let me get this right. A container comes in with the refined product, whether it's 91, 95 or 98, I guess, diesel. You've purchased, some of that container or some of that ship, or you order entire shiploads?
We're sort of probably classed as a reseller or distributor, and so that means that we buy directly off the fuel company. So we buy off, the various terminals around New Zealand. So we pick that up. We've got supply agreements, and then we deliver it to our sites.
So the people who wholesale to you the petrol, they're retailers as well?
Yes. So, the main terminal owners across New Zealand are Z Energy, Mobil, and BP.
Right.
And you've got independent players as well, such as Gull in the North Island and Timaru Oil Services in the South Island.
So you're in competition with them in retail, and yet they sell to you at wholesale rates and you undercut them. That doesn't seem a particularly smart business model from their point of view.
Yeah, I guess, but that's the Fuel Industry Act. That was where the Commerce Commission did, an in-depth study a couple of years ago, where and that's where the market actually works. And I think we all sort of saw 5-7 years ago that the fuel margins that the retailers were making were quite large, and they were starting to creep up. But that's the market works itself, right, where it creates opportunities for companies such as Waitomo to expand and carve out a niche of the unattended platform to look for those more price conscious customers.
Yeah, well, here I am. Well, when you say price conscious, I think you've just got 99% of humanity here at the moment. Finally, Simon, big picture stuff. Somebody's just asked, can you ask what you know about the emissions trading scheme and what effect that will have on petrol prices? So have you had a look at that?
Yeah, look, so at the moment, probably I think it's 15 cents a litre is paid. Every litre you pay, that's ETS, so that's for that sort of carbon unit. So as that increases in every carbon unit, as that increases, that means we're going to be paying more on our fuel because of that, as essentially as
So have you done? You will have done some figures though, as to what you think that is likely to go to.
Yeah, it's tough, right? It was $80 earlier in the year, and it's just popped back up towards 70. I think the government wants it to go to circa 150. Yeah. So it's going to get quite expensive, and this goes hand in hand with some of the recent announcements around putting more fuel tax on to fund for roads. So my argument is well, we've been taxed enough. Why don't we look at how we spend it and ensure there's no wastage? Because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of wastage in the in how the money is spent and that tax. Because I'm sure that there's still tax on every litre we pay that was put on and levied back in the 60s for Marsden Point Refinery. So these things get lost and they never get taken off.
But on that, I'm just listening to what you said. If you're paying 15 cents a litre now for the current, for what had been the current pricing of the ETS, the emissions trading scheme, and you're right, the government wants to raise it because they want to send a more direct price signal, then I'm betting, and tell me if I'm right, in the right margin, that there'll be another 15 to 20 cents a litre if they get...
Correct.
I'm right?
Yes, you're right.
Bloody hell. And that's almost immediate. I mean, The next auction, I think, is just around about the election or just after the election. That's when that new price is meant to come in. Would you expect to see that before Christmas?
If the price of the ETS unit goes up, then you'll start to see that coming into the market over probably the following week, month. So that will come in almost instantly.
Yeah.
It's like an excise increase, right? It's a tax that just, there's no fuel company can actually afford to absorb that, so it gets passed straight on to the consumer, unfortunately.
Wow. That is not a Christmas present that we would want to be having.
No.
But having said that, I'm glad you're in the market, Simon, because if you weren't, things would just be so much worse. But all luck to you. You've got a supporter here, and I have to say, please, for God's sake, as many Waitomos as you can put around the country, please go.
We will, and we're always looking. So if you've got any, front yards like your place, we're happy to put a couple of houses there to keep competition true.
Good on you, mate. Thank you. Nice to talk to you.
Cheers.
That's Simon Parham. He's the Chief Executive of Waitomo Petrol. I've been after that interview for a long time, and so thank you, Hugh, for getting it. But, yeah, did you hear that? Yes, you did. An extra 15 to 20 cents a litre on petrol before Christmas because of the emissions trading scheme. Now, can I just say, Josh, just between you and me quietly, that story's been buried by the mainstream media, hasn't it? Just quietly?
Massively so. Massively so.
And no one's talking about that on the campaign trail, are they?